I wasn't supposed to meet my daughter's eyes through a sheet of ICU glass. A mother should be the first one called, the first one running down the hallway, the one holding her child's hand when the machines start beeping. Instead, when I finally reached the hospital that night, my 27-year-old daughter was lying there alone, pale and still, surrounded by wires and cold blue light. And the nurse looked at me and quietly asked, "Ma'am, why did it take you so long to come?" I didn't even know she was here. 8 hours earlier, I'd been driving my old Toyota Camry along the Florida highway, windows cracked just enough to let the salt air in. I was coming home early from my mother's place on the coast, thinking I'd surprise Emily after her shift. I pictured us eating takeout on her couch, laughing about hospital stories, me complaining about my stiff back, and her rolling her eyes. I hadn't told my husband I was coming back a day sooner. Rick always said I worried too much about Emily anyway. "She's an adult, Linda," he'd sigh. "You smother her. Let the girl live her life." So I kept the little plan to myself, humming along with the radio, my old iPhone buzzing in the cup holder with a couple of missed spam calls. By the time I pulled into Emily's apartment complex, the sun was sliding down behind the palm trees. The stairwell smelled like old carpet cleaner and somebody's leftover dinner. I climbed up to her floor, heart light, already rehearsing how I'd knock and say, "Surprise, honey, your mother's home early." Her door was dark. No light slipped from underneath. I knocked once, then again, a little harder. It's Mom." Nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. My stomach dipped, just a little. Maybe she picked up an extra shift, I told myself. Nurses do that all the time. Still, something felt wrong. The welcome mat was crooked, and there was a small stack of unopened mail in the box downstairs with her name on it. Emily hated clutter. She used to clean her room at midnight if a sock was out of place. I took out my phone and called her, straight to voicemail. "Hey Em, I'm back in town," I said, forcing cheer into my voice. "I'm at your place. Call me when you get this, okay? Love you." I waited. Nothing. I tried again. Same thing. A thin line of worry started to pull tight across my chest. I walked back to the parking lot, pacing between cars while the sky turned a deeper orange. Maybe she was with friends. Maybe she was sleeping. Maybe I was doing that thing Rick hated, making drama out of nothing. So I called him. The phone rang and rang, then cut off. No answer. I stared at the screen, seeing my own reflection for a second. A tired 56-year-old woman with wind-tangled hair and too many what-ifs in her eyes. That's when my phone buzzed with an unknown local number. "Hello?" I answered, half expecting a robocall. "Is this Linda Monroe?" a woman asked. Her voice was calm, practiced, and somehow that scared me more. "Yes, this is she. Are you the mother of Emily Monroe?" My knees almost gave out. "Yes. Is she okay?" "I'm calling from St. Augustine General Hospital. Your daughter was admitted to the ICU earlier today with cardiac complications. We've been trying to reach her emergency contact." She paused, and I could hear the faint beeping of machines on her end of the line. "We weren't able to get anyone. Can you come now?" I don't remember getting back into the car. I just remember the world narrowing to two things: the sound of my breathing and the green glow of the hospital sign when I finally turned into the lot. I parked crooked, left the door half shut, and ran through the sliding doors like a woman running from a fire. The ICU hallway was too bright, too clean, too quiet. A nurse with kind eyes, her badge said Chloe, met me halfway and guided me toward a glass window. "She's stable for now," Chloe said gently, "but we had to ventilate her for a while." She came in alone. Alone. The word broke something open in me. Through the glass, my daughter looked smaller than I remembered, a thin hospital blanket pulled up over the gown. Electrodes dotted her chest. A monitor traced her heart in jagged green lines. I pressed my hands to the glass, tears blurring my view. "I didn't know," I whispered. "Nobody called me." Chloe hesitated. "Her chart lists a different emergency contact, ma'am." We tried." Behind me, my phone started to vibrate again. I glanced down and saw Rick's name lighting up the screen over and over. For the first time in my life, I let it ring. I didn't sit down until someone made me. "Ma'am, you're shaking," Chloe said softly. "Come on, let me get you a chair." I hadn't noticed my knees were trembling until then. My hands were still on the glass, fingertips leaving little cloudy prints. Emily's chest rose and fell in slow, uneven breaths. Machines hummed around her, indifferent to the way my world was coming apart. Chloe guided me to a plastic chair just outside the ICU bay. It squeaked when I sat. The whole hallway smelled like bleach and hand sanitizer. Someone's shoes squeaked in the distance, a rhythm that made me feel even more out of place. "Do you know what happened?" I asked, my voice barely there. "She came in complaining of chest pain and shortness of breath," Chloe answered. "Passed out right at the triage desk. They rushed her back before we could even finish the paperwork." I pictured my daughter standing there, clutching her chest, trying to explain herself to a stranger while everything inside her was going wrong. My throat tightened. "She has a history of heart issues?" Chloe asked gently. "Yes, since she was little." I swallowed. "We had surgery when she was 9. I thought we were past the worst." Chloe gave me that nurse look, professional but still human. "She's young, and she came in quickly. That helps us a lot. She's getting good care, I promise." I nodded, but the words didn't stick. My mind kept circling the same question. Why didn't anyone call me? "About the emergency contact," I said suddenly. "You said it wasn't me. Who was listed?" Chloe hesitated just a second too long. "Her stepfather," she finally said. "A Rick Thompson." I stared at her. "We called several times this afternoon," she added. No answer. It went to voicemail. My stomach twisted. Rick had ignored calls from the ICU, or he hadn't seen them. A tiny, hopeful part of me tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. But another part, one I'd been ignoring for years, just went quiet and cold. "Can I stay?" I asked. "All night, if I have to?" "We have a family waiting room right down the hall," Chloe said. "You can't sleep inside ICU, but you can be as close as possible." She gave a tiny smile. "The chairs aren't great, but they're better than the floor." She walked me to the waiting room, a square space with tan walls and a TV mounted in the corner playing some old sitcom no one was watching. A vending machine hummed near the door. A half-empty water bottle sat abandoned on a little table next to a pile of magazines from last year. I sank into a chair and realized I was still holding my purse like a shield. My phone buzzed again. "Rick." I let it ring once, twice, 3 times before I finally answered. "Where are you?" were his first words. "No hello, no are you okay?" "At the hospital," I said. There was a beat of silence. "Hospital? Why?" "It's Emily," I whispered. Saying it out loud made it too real. "She's in the ICU?" "What? Since when?" He sounded more annoyed than frightened. "Since today. They called you, several times." "I've been on a job site all afternoon," he snapped. I could hear tools clanking in the background, or maybe he turned on that noise on purpose. "My phone was in the truck. Why didn't anyone call you?" "They didn't have my number," I said. My voice came out sharper than I meant. "You're listed as her emergency contact." There was another pause. "Well, yeah, because you're always running around, with your mom, with the clinic, with everything. I told her I'd handle things if anything happened." "Rick," I said slowly, "I'm her mother." He exhaled loudly, like I was being unreasonable. "Linda, this is not the time to argue about feelings. How bad is it? Because if she's stable, I still have to finish this job. If I walk off now, we don't get paid." Something inside me recoiled. I looked through the glass door toward the hallway, where I knew my daughter lay hooked to machines. "She almost died alone today," I said. "That's how bad it is." The line went quiet. For a second I thought he'd hung up. "I'll come by later," he said at last, "after I'm done here." I stared at the phone long after the call ended, the screen reflecting my face back at me. I looked older than I felt. Or maybe I finally looked exactly as old as this moment required. A little while later, Chloe came back with a paper cup. "Hospital coffee," she said. "Not great, but it's free. One of the only perks around here." I took it with both hands. "Thank you." She glanced at the empty chairs around us. "Was anyone with her when she came in?" "No," I said. "She lives alone." Chloe nodded slowly. "She kept asking if someone had called you before she passed out," she murmured. "I think she was trying to hold on for that." The coffee in my hands suddenly felt too hot. "I should have been here," I whispered. Chloe shook her head. "You're here now. That matters." Maybe it was the lack of sleep, or the harsh light, or the weight of the day, but the words slipped out before I could stop them. "Then why does it feel like I'm already too late?" By morning, the ICU waiting room felt like a second skin. Stiff chair, humming vending machine, and the kind of cold air that settles into your bones. I must have dozed off at some point, because when I opened my eyes, sunlight was leaking through the blinds and someone had draped a thin blanket over my shoulders. I didn't need to guess who. Nurses have a way of caring even when no one asks them to. "Good morning, Linda," Chloe said softly as she passed by with a chart. She had a calm night, no major changes. Sometimes no news is good news. I nodded, even though calm still sounded too close to the edge. My iPhone buzzed with a text from Rick. "How is she?" "I'll stop by after lunch." After lunch, like he was scheduling a dentist appointment. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to Emily's room. The hallway felt less terrifying than last night, but only by an inch. Through the glass, Emily's chest rose gently under the blanket. Her hair was pushed back, a little messy, her lips pale, but she was still here. That was enough to steady me for a moment. I pressed a hand to the glass. "Mom's here, sweetheart." A man in a navy vest approached. He had kind eyes framed by reading glasses and held a clipboard full of forms. "Mrs. Monroe? I'm Mr. Jackson, Hospital Social Services. ICU admissions flagged Emily's case because she came in alone. We review charts to make sure patients have support." Support, that word stung. He gestured to the chart. "We have Emily's medical history, but we're missing an updated consent form for certain decisions. Since she's unconscious, we'll need..." His voice trailed off as he studied the document. "It says her designated contact is your husband?" No. My voice cracked. "I'm her mother. I've always been her main contact." Mr. Jackson adjusted his glasses. "Well, someone updated her emergency profile 2 months ago." I felt my stomach drop. "Updated it how?" "Your name was removed from primary contact. Your husband's number was added instead." He looked up gently. "Did you authorize that?" "No," I whispered. I didn't even know. A quiet, cold anger curled inside me, slow and heavy like wet sand pulling me down. 2 months ago was exactly when I left town to care for my mother. Had Rick taken advantage of that time? But why? What reason could he possibly have to push me out of my own daughter's medical decisions? "I'll request permission to restore your status," Mr. Jackson said kindly. "We simply need proof of your relationship." I almost laughed. Proof? My body carried the scars of childbirth. My heart carried every fear Emily had ever felt. What more proof did the world need? But I only nodded and murmured, "Thank you." As he walked away, my eyes caught on something wedged between the blanket and the armrest of the nearby chair. A crumpled envelope, one I recognized instantly. Cream-colored. Emily's handwriting on the front. It was the envelope she handed me weeks ago, the one I'd slipped into my purse while rushing to the airport. I must have dropped it last night. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a short note. "Mom, I don't know what to do. Rick keeps asking me to sign insurance forms I don't understand. Something feels wrong, but I can't prove it. If anything ever happens to me, please look into it. Please don't ignore this." I covered my mouth, the words blurring through tears. She had tried to warn me. Instead of listening, I'd told her, "Let Rick help with the paperwork, honey. He's just trying to make life easier." I felt sick. A small rustle broke the moment. Chloe appeared beside me, placing a soft hand on my shoulder. "Linda," she said gently, "you look like you saw a ghost." I handed her the note with shaking fingers. She read it, brows tightening with concern. "This looks serious," she murmured. "You should talk to social services. They can help you look into this." "I already did," I whispered. She squeezed my arm. "Good, because Emily, she deserves people in her corner." Her words cracked something open in me. I sank into the chair, clutching the letter, breath shaky. There was one more thing in the envelope, a folded insurance statement with unfamiliar charges, procedures Emily never mentioned, dates that didn't add up. Amounts that were all wrong. My heart hammered. "Chloe," I said, voice barely stable, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." If a family member changed a patient's emergency contact or their paperwork without telling them, would the hospital catch it? "It depends." She hesitated. "But usually someone has to do it intentionally." Intentionally. The word echoed through me like a thud. Before I could process it, my phone vibrated again. Rick calling. I didn't answer. Not this time. Not with that letter in my hands. Not when my daughter had been fighting for her life alone. Instead, I let the phone ring until it stopped and stared at the doorway, feeling something deep, protective, and fierce rising inside me. Whatever had happened to Emily, I was going to find out. By the time Rick walked into the hospital that afternoon, the letter was still folded in my pocket, softened at the edges from how many times I'd pressed my fingers into it. I'd spent the last hours pacing between the waiting room and the ICU window, trying to calm the storm gathering in my chest. He arrived holding a lukewarm gas station coffee, looking irritated rather than anxious, as if the hospital parking lot had personally offended him. "There you are," he said, breathless from the elevator. "You didn't answer my texts." I stared at him. "Emily almost died yesterday." Rick lifted his coffee cup slightly. "Yeah, and I came as soon as I could, the job site." "Don't," I said sharply. "Not today." He blinked, surprised at my tone. I wasn't usually sharp. I wasn't usually anything but careful around him. But the letter in my pocket sharpened every word. Rick cleared his throat. "So, is she awake?" "Not yet." He nodded as if I'd given a weather report. Then he went straight to the chart outside Emily's room, scanning the notes like he knew what any of it meant. "You shouldn't touch that," Chloe said as she approached, her expression polite but firm. Rick dropped his hand. "Just trying to stay informed." "Then ask," she replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Rick frowned and stepped back, muttering something under his breath. I watched the interaction carefully. It wasn't the first time I'd seen him bristle when women corrected him, but today everything had a sharper edge, a louder echo. When Chloe walked away, Rick leaned closer to me. "Look, how long until she's out of here? ICU is expensive. Did they say if insurance is covering all of it?" I froze. Of all the questions he could have asked, is she stable? Is she scared? Did she ask for me? He chose that one. "Is that really what you're thinking about right now?" I whispered. Rick shrugged. "Someone has to think practically. You get emotional and then—" "Emotional?" My voice trembled. "Rick, she's lying in there alone." "And I'm here, aren't I?" He shot back. "I told you I'd handle things." I inhaled slowly, because if I didn't, I would scream. "Can we talk?" I said tightly. "Somewhere private." He followed me to a quiet corner near the vending machines. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between us. "Rick," I began, pulling out the envelope. "What is this?" He barely glanced at it. "Looks like mail." "It's a letter from Emily," I said. "She wrote it weeks ago." I handed it to him, watching his face closely. "She said you kept giving her paperwork to sign. Insurance forms she didn't understand. She said something felt wrong." Rick's jaw tightened. He shoved the letter back at me without reading more than a line. "She exaggerates. You know how she gets when she's stressed." "She was scared," I said. "She said she didn't trust whatever you were doing with her insurance." Rick scoffed. "She's a kid. She doesn't get how these systems work." "I was helping." "Helping?" My voice cracked. "Then why did you change her emergency contact without telling me? Why did the hospital call you instead of me? Why didn't you show up yesterday when they tried calling?" "That was a misunderstanding." "No," I said softly, stepping closer. "That was intentional." For the first time, a flicker of panic crossed his face. "Small, but there." "You think I'd hurt her? Or you?" he asked, voice rising. "I think," I whispered, "that you've been doing things behind our backs, things that involve money, things that involve her medical information." Rick dragged a hand across his face. "Linda, you are blowing this out of proportion. I took care of the paperwork because you get overwhelmed. You panic. You always have." It was a practiced line, one he'd used on me for years, but this time it didn't land. "This isn't about me," I said. "It's about Emily, and something isn't right." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If you start accusing me of things, you're going to regret it." Before I could answer, a voice interrupted us. "Mrs. Monroe?" Mr. Jackson walked up, holding a stack of documents. Rick stiffened at the sight of him. "Good timing," I said quietly. Jackson nodded politely to Rick, then turned to me. "We reviewed additional billing records tied to your daughter's account. There are discrepancies." Rick's head snapped toward him. "What kind of discrepancies?" Jackson didn't flinch. "Charges for procedures she never received, authorizations she never signed." Rick opened his mouth, but no words came out. "And," Jackson continued, glancing at me, "several payments were rerouted to an account that doesn't belong to Emily." My pulse pounded. Even though I'd expected something bad, hearing it out loud was like taking a punch to the ribs. Rick swallowed hard. "This is ridiculous. You can't—" Jackson held up a hand calmly. "Sir, this will need to be investigated. We'll be contacting the insurance company, and you may be asked for a formal statement. Rick's face flushed a deep, angry red. This is harassment. No, I said quietly. This is the truth, finally coming out. Rick stared at me, really stared, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked scared. He turned abruptly and walked down the hallway, his steps echoing sharply. When he disappeared around the corner, Jackson looked at me. Are you all right? I shook my head. No, but I'm not afraid anymore. Through the glass, Emily lay peacefully, unaware of the storm breaking outside her room. I placed my hand against the window again. I'm going to protect you, I whispered. I promise. I was still standing outside Emily's room when I heard something, a small, fragile sound, like someone trying to breathe through pain. I froze. Then I realized it was her. Her eyelids fluttered first, then her fingers twitched against the blanket. A soft alarm beeped once, adjusting to her sudden change in rhythm. I pressed the call button so hard my thumb hurt. A nurse rushed in. She's waking up, I whispered, my voice breaking, and I don't know how to describe it. There are moments in life that are too big for words. Watching your child return to consciousness after almost dying, it pulls something out of you, something ancient and primal. I felt my knees weaken, but I held on to the railing to steady myself. Emily's eyes opened slowly, like she had to fight through layers of water just to reach the surface. When she finally focused, her gaze drifted across the room, then landed on me. Her lips barely moved, but I saw it. Mom? I was through the door before anyone could stop me. I'm here, I whispered, leaning over the bed. I'm right here, sweetheart. She blinked, confused, scared, then relieved, so relieved that her whole face softened. Tears slid sideways into her hair. I didn't know if you'd come, she whispered. That broke me. Completely. I'm sorry, I cried. I'm so sorry I wasn't here when you came in. I didn't know, Em. No one told me. She swallowed hard. I tried to call. I thought I'd make it back to my apartment, but I couldn't. You should have called me again, I murmured, brushing her hair gently. I did, she said weakly. Your number wasn't listed anymore. They called Rick. Her voice faltered at his name. I glanced at the nurse, who quietly stepped back to give us privacy. Emily, I said gently, there's something I found, something you wrote. I held her hand carefully. You told me you didn't trust what Rick was doing with your insurance. Her eyes widened, not in surprise, but in the way someone looks when a secret they've carried alone finally has space to breathe. So you saw the letter, she whispered. I did. I was scared, Mom. Her voice cracked. He kept bringing forms. He said the insurance needed updates, but when I asked questions, he'd get annoyed or say I was being dramatic. He told me not to bother you, that you were overwhelmed already with Grandma. I didn't want to cause problems. My heart clenched. You could never cause problems. You are my daughter. She closed her eyes, tears slipping out. The night before I came here, he and I argued. I told him I didn't want to sign anything else until I understood it. He got so angry he walked out. I felt so stressed, my chest started hurting. I thought it was just fatigue. I tried to drive myself to the hospital, but I barely made it down the block. I held her hand tighter. Why didn't you call me? I did, she whispered, but it said the number wasn't active. I thought maybe you changed it. I panicked. I tried calling Rick after, but he didn't answer either. I felt heat rising in my chest, rage, grief, guilt, all tangled into one unbearable knot. That must have been terrifying, I said softly. She nodded. I didn't want to die alone. That sentence hit me harder than any truth so far. I leaned down, pressing my forehead to her hand. You didn't, I whispered. You didn't die. You're here. And I'm not going anywhere. She drew a shallow breath, steadier now. Mom, please don't be mad at me. I hid it because I didn't want you to think I was causing trouble with Rick. I sat up, cupping her cheek gently. Sweetheart, trouble is what he caused, not you. Just then, the door opened and Rick stepped inside. He froze. Emily's expression changed instantly. Fear flashed through her eyes, followed by something sharper. Resentment. Hey, kiddo, Rick said, forcing a smile. You gave us all a scare. Emily turned her face toward me instead. Mom, she whispered, refusing to even look at him. Please don't let him stay. Rick blinked. Excuse me? Emily shut her eyes, her voice trembling. I don't feel safe with you here. The room fell dead silent. Rick stuttered. Emily, what are you talking about? I'm your stepdad. Not today, she whispered. Please leave. He looked at me like he expected backup, but instead, I stepped closer to Emily and said, "She asked you to go." His face reddened. "This is ridiculous." But Chloe appeared behind him, almost like she'd been waiting for the right moment. "Sir," she said calmly, "the patient has the right to control who is allowed in the room. You'll need to step outside." Rick looked between all three of us, Emily pale but firm, me standing beside her, Chloe blocking the path. Then he turned and stormed out, the door clicking shut behind him. Emily let out a shaky breath. "Thank you," she whispered. I kissed her forehead. "Rest now. I'll handle everything." She nodded, eyes drifting closed again, trusting me in a way that shattered my heart and rebuilt it all at once. For the first time since I walked into this hospital, I knew exactly what I had to do. Protect my daughter, no matter what it cost. For the first time since Emily was admitted, the hospital felt less like a maze and more like a battleground. One I suddenly had the strength to walk across. My daughter had trusted me to protect her. That was enough to sharpen every instinct I had left. The morning after Emily asked Rick to leave, Mr. Jackson found me in the family lounge, hunched over a cup of terrible hospital coffee. "Mrs. Monroe," he said gently, "I spoke with the billing department. There are more irregularities than we initially saw." I set the cup down. "How many more?" He hesitated. "Enough that the insurance company will likely open a formal inquiry." The words made my skin prickle. Inquiry was just a polite way of saying someone's been doing something wrong. He spread a stack of papers across the table. We found authorizations with signatures that don't match Emily's handwriting, and charges submitted for services she physically couldn't have received during her work shifts. I stared at the papers. They looked harmless, just ink on paper. But I felt sick, the kind of sick that starts deep in the stomach and spreads upward. "Is this criminal?" I whispered. "It can be," Jackson said carefully. "If someone manipulated insurance documents for financial gain, that's fraud. And if someone interfered with her ability to get care by changing her emergency information, that's serious too." The room spun a little. I put a hand on the table to steady myself. "I should have seen this," I murmured. "I should have." "Stop." Jackson's voice was firm but kind. "People who manipulate family finances prey on trust, on relationships. They hide things in paperwork because they know most people don't read every line." I looked up at him. Emily said she felt pressured to sign things. She begged him to stop. His eyes softened. "Then you're doing the right thing bringing this forward." A soft knock pulled our attention. Chloe poked her head in. "Linda, Emily's asking for you." I thanked Jackson and followed her. My heart lifted when I saw Emily sitting up a little higher, color returning to her cheeks. She held a plastic cup of water in shaky hands. "You're looking stronger today," I said, brushing a stray curl off her forehead. "A little," she whispered. Then she bit her lip. "Mom, what happens now? With everything?" I sat down beside her. "That's what I want to talk about." I squeezed her hand. "The hospital found problems with your insurance files, big ones, and they're going to investigate." Emily closed her eyes slowly, like the news didn't shock her, like it confirmed something she'd feared for too long. "Did he take money?" she asked softly. I didn't sugarcoat it. "It looks that way." Tears gathered in her eyes. "But why? Why would he?" "Because he could," I said, voice trembling. "Because he thought neither of us would notice. Because he treated your illness like an opportunity." Emily flinched at the word illness. I immediately regretted it, but she squeezed my hand back to show she understood. "I kept thinking I was overreacting," she whispered. "He always made me feel like I was making trouble." That hit me harder than I expected. I had spent years letting Rick talk to me the same way, like my concerns were just emotional noise he didn't want to deal with. But Emily deserved better. "You were right to feel uneasy," I told her. "And now we're going to fix this." She nodded, wiping her cheek. Her gaze drifted toward the door. "Is he coming back?" "Not if you don't want him to," I said. "Chloe and the staff know. You get to choose who's allowed in." Relief washed over her face so clearly that it made my own chest ache. Just then, my phone buzzed on the bedside table. Rick's name glowed on the screen again. Emily tensed. "Don't answer." "I won't." The phone buzzed again, then again, 5 times in a row. I finally flipped it face down to stop the vibration. "I think he knows something's happening," Emily whispered. "He knows," I said quietly. Jackson spoke to him yesterday and the insurance company will contact him soon. Is he gonna get in trouble? I hesitated. Emily, if he did what it looks like he did, then yes, he will, she swallowed. I don't want to feel guilty about that. You don't have to, I said. Actions have consequences, even his. Her shoulders relaxed just a little, enough to show she believed me. A nurse walked in to check Emily's vitals, giving us a few moments of silence. I watched the steady green line on the monitor rise and fall, stronger than yesterday, steadier. When the nurse left, Emily looked at me with something new. Courage. Mom, she whispered, can you stay tonight? I leaned down and kissed her forehead. I'm not leaving this hospital until you do. She smiled for the first time since waking up, a small, tired smile that looked like hope. As she drifted back to sleep, I stepped into the hallway and made a decision I should have made years ago. I called the insurance company myself. Hello, I said when an agent picked up. My name is Linda Monroe. I believe someone tampered with my daughter's medical documents. I want to file a formal report. And as I spoke, I felt something blossom inside me, small at first, then stronger. Not anger, not fear, power. The kind a mother finds when she's finally done being quiet. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital before sunrise. The sky was still a deep blue, the kind that makes street lamps glow like tired fireflies. I carried a warm cup of Starbucks coffee, not because I needed it, but because hospitals feel less frightening when your hands have something to hold. Chloe waved at me as I passed the nurse's station. She's stable and sleeping. Good night for her. My shoulders relaxed. Thank you. But the calm didn't last long. When I reached the family lounge, waiting for the cardiologist to finish rounds, a man in a suit approached me. Crisp tie, neat folder, badge around his neck. Mrs. Monroe? He asked. Yes? I'm Daniel Harper, investigator with Horizon State Insurance. Everything inside me went cold and hot at the same time. He gestured toward a quiet corner. Could we talk privately? I nodded and followed him. His voice was low, professional, but not unkind. Thank you for reporting the inconsistencies yesterday, Harper said. We pulled your daughter's file immediately. What we found raises significant concern. My pulse quickened. What kind of concern? He opened the folder. First, several claim submissions list procedures she never received. Second, someone updated her policy beneficiaries 6 months ago. Beneficiaries? I whispered. To who? He studied my face before answering, as if gauging how much pain I could take. To your husband, Rick Thompson. The hallway seemed to tilt. But I never approved that. Emily would never. That's the issue, he said gently. The signature doesn't match hers, and we have reason to believe the update was submitted from your home IP address. I felt a deep, nauseating twist in my stomach. He forged it. It appears so. I pressed a hand to my forehead. Dear God, Harper continued, insurance fraud is one part of it, but altering beneficiary documents while the patient has a known medical condition can trigger further investigation for intent. I stared at him. Intent for what? He paused, choosing his words carefully. For financial gain in the event of her death. My breath left me all at once, like I'd been hit in the chest. No. Rick was selfish, controlling, manipulative, but he wouldn't. Would he? I forced myself to breathe. What happens now? We'll file a formal case. Law enforcement may request interviews. We will also need a statement from your daughter when she's strong enough. I nodded slowly, gripping my coffee cup until my fingers hurt. We'll cooperate? Harper closed the folder. Mrs. Monroe, I'm sorry. This is not an easy situation, but you did the right thing coming forward. He left down the hallway, his footsteps fading into the hum of machines. I stood there, frozen, the truth settling into my bones. Rick wasn't just stealing. He was preparing for something unthinkable. I felt my throat tighten, my vision blurred. I wiped my face quickly before going back into Emily's room. She was awake, looking at the ceiling like she was trying to piece her world back together. When she saw me, her eyes softened. Mom, she whispered. You look tired. I sat beside her, smoothing the blanket. Just a long morning. She studied my face for a moment. Emily always could read me too well. Something happened. I hesitated. The insurance company sent an investigator. Her breath caught. And they found more issues. I didn't say yet what more issues meant. Not until she was stronger. They're opening a formal case. She nodded, then closed her eyes. I knew something was wrong. Every time I said no, he'd act like I was being ungrateful. I swallowed hard. You don't have to justify yourself anymore. I was scared, she whispered, but I didn't know he'd go this far. Neither did I. Before I could answer, a sharp voice echoed down the hallway. Look, I have every right to see her. Rick, my stomach dropped. Chloe stepped into the doorway immediately. Stay here, she said firmly. But it was too late. He'd already reached the door. His hair was messy, and he looked furious, like a man who realized control had finally slipped through his fingers. What the hell is going on? He demanded. Someone from the insurance company called me. Asked about fraud. Asked about paperwork. Asked if I changed her forms. Emily shrank back slightly, her heart monitor picking up speed. Keep your voice down, I warned him. Rick pointed at me. You did this. You've been poisoning her against me, and now you're dragging investigators into our lives? For what? For the truth, I said steadily. He scoffed. The truth? The truth is you can't stand that she trusts me. Something inside me snapped. She trusted you, I said, stepping forward, until you used that trust to take her signature, her documents, her emergency contacts, her safety. She trusted you until you turned her illness into your opportunity. Rick's face twisted. That's a lie. Chloe appeared right behind him, arms folded, an unspoken warning in her posture. Sir, you need to leave the room, now. He ignored her. Linda, you think investigators scare me? You think paperwork scares me? I did what I had to do to keep this family afloat, since you never could. Emily gasped softly. Her heart rate monitor beeped faster. That was it. Get out, I said, voice like stone. He laughed bitterly. You don't get to tell me? Get out. The words weren't loud, but they were final. Chloe stepped between us. Sir, if you don't leave immediately, security will escort you. His jaw worked silently, rage and fear battling behind his eyes. Then he spat on the floor and walked out. Chloe locked the door behind him. Emily let out a shuddering breath, tears slipping onto her pillow. I rushed to her side. It's okay, I whispered. It's over. I'm here. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Not even close. Because when a man starts losing control of a lie, that's when he becomes dangerous. By the next morning, the hospital had shifted from quiet concern to something heavier. Watchfulness. Nurses greeted me with softer voices. Security seemed to linger a little longer near the elevators. Even the hallways felt tense, as if the walls were waiting for the next crack to appear. Rick's outburst yesterday had changed the atmosphere. When I stepped into Emily's room, she was awake, propped slightly upright, her heart monitor steady. The sunlight coming in through the blinds painted warm stripes across her blanket. Morning, sweetheart, I said gently. She gave me a small smile, the kind that looked brave on the surface but exhausted underneath. Morning, Mom. I checked her water, adjusted her pillow, smoothed her hair. All the small things I wished I could have done the day she came in alone. Did you sleep? She asked. A little, I lied. She didn't press further. She didn't need to. She could always tell when something was weighing on me. A soft knock came, and a familiar voice followed. Mrs. Monroe? Emily? May I come in? It was Daniel Harper, the insurance investigator. Emily tensed, gripping the blanket. I placed my hand over hers. It's okay, he's here to help. Harper stepped inside, keeping his tone calm and careful. Emily, I'm glad to see you awake. I won't take much of your energy, but there are a few questions we need to clarify when you feel ready. Emily nodded faintly. I can answer. He pulled up a chair. First, did you personally sign these documents? He handed her a tablet with scanned pages. Emily barely skimmed them before shaking her head. No, I never saw these. Harper nodded, confirming something he already suspected. Thank you. And did you authorize any changes to your emergency contact or beneficiary status? No, she swallowed. I didn't even know I had a beneficiary status. That's what I thought, Harper said gently. One more question for today. Did anyone pressure you to sign papers you didn't understand? Emily hesitated, and the hesitation itself was an answer. She looked up at me, eyes glistening. Yes. Rick. Harper nodded, making a brief note. Thank you. That's enough for now. You did well. When he left, Emily sagged back against the pillows. Mom, what if this gets worse? What if he comes back? I leaned close, brushing her cheek. He won't get to you, not anymore. But as soon as I stepped into the hallway, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something in my gut pushed me to. Hello? A low voice, shaky and angry, came through the speaker. You think you're smart, Linda? My breath caught. Rick. You're tearing this family apart? Investigators, fraud charges, beneficiary documents? His breathing was ragged. You want to ruin me. I didn't ruin anything, I said sharply. You did that yourself. You're going to regret this. The threat was unmistakable. Don't call again, I said and hung up before my hands started shaking. I rushed back toward the nurse's station. Chloe, can I talk to you privately? She led me to a side alcove. When I explained the call, her face darkened, not with fear, but with fierce protectiveness. Linda, this is no longer just a family issue. You need to report that to security. I don't want to make a scene. No, she said firmly. He threatened you, and Emily's safety is now a formal concern. I nodded, letting her guide me toward the security office. A tall officer named Ramirez listened carefully, taking notes. We've been briefed about Mr. Thompson, he said. If he steps foot on this floor, he'll be removed. If he makes more threats, you can file a restraining order. My throat tightened. A restraining order? It's a protective measure, Ramirez said, and based on the case already forming, it may be necessary. When we were done, I returned to Emily's room, trying to steady my breathing. She looked up anxiously. Mom, what happened? I sat beside her, taking her hand. Emily, I need you to listen. There's a chance we'll need legal protection. Security is aware. You are safe here. Her eyes widened with fear. He wouldn't hurt us, would he? I didn't answer immediately, because silence was the most honest answer. I won't let anything happen to you, I finally said. Emily's lip trembled. I feel like everything is falling apart. I brushed her hair back. Sometimes things fall apart so the truth can finally be seen. She looked at me with tears brimming. Ralph, are we going to make it through this? Yes, I said, kissing her forehead. We will. Right then, her heart monitor beeped softly, not in alarm, but in rhythm. Steady, reliable, a sign she was still here, still fighting. A nurse walked in with updated labs. Good news, she said with a smile. Your levels are improving. You're healing. Healing. The word washed over the room like sunlight. But as I held Emily's hand, I knew healing wasn't just physical. It was knowing the truth, facing it, surviving it. And the truth was about to get even uglier. Because just as the nurse left, a sheriff's deputy appeared at the doorway, hat in hand. Mrs. Monroe? He asked. Yes? I'm here about a report filed by Horizon State Insurance. Emily squeezed my fingers. The deputy continued. We need to ask you a few questions about your husband, Rick Thompson, and an ongoing investigation that now involves potential felony fraud. The room went silent. Emily's eyes widened. And I knew. What Rick feared most was finally catching up to him, and this time, he wouldn't be able to outrun it. The sheriff's presence in the doorway shifted the air in Emily's hospital room. Even the steady beeping of her heart monitor felt quieter, as if the machines themselves were listening. May we speak privately? The deputy asked, voice gentle but firm. Emily's fingers tightened around mine. Mom, don't leave. I stroked her hand. I'm not going far. Then to the deputy, we can talk right outside. I need to stay where she can see me. He nodded respectfully. Of course. I stepped just beyond the doorway, but Emily's eyes remained locked on me, trying to draw strength from every movement I made. The deputy opened a small notebook. Mrs. Monroe, I'll get straight to it. Horizon State Insurance filed a complaint stating there were forged documents, unauthorized beneficiary changes, and indications of financial coercion against your daughter. I nodded, jaw tight. Yes, all of that is true. He continued. Combined with Emily's medical condition, these actions raise concern for potential criminal intent. We're required to investigate whether Mr. Rick Thompson knowingly exploited her vulnerability. A chill ran through me. I believe he did. Do you have evidence? Notes? Messages? Anything from your daughter? I pulled the folded letter from my pocket, the one that had softened at the edges from being held again and again. This, I said quietly. She wrote it weeks ago. I didn't read it in time. The deputy scanned it, his expression tightening. This is significant. I know. He looked up from the letter. Mrs. Monroe, has Mr. Thompson ever acted violently toward you or Emily? I hesitated, not because the answer was unclear, but because emotional violence rarely leaves a visible bruise. He was controlling, I said slowly, dismissive, manipulative, especially with paperwork, with money. But yesterday, my voice tightened. He threatened me, over the phone. Did you record it? No. But you're willing to testify. I looked back at Emily, pale, fragile, but fighting for her life with every breath. Yes, I said. I will. The deputy nodded. We'll need a formal statement soon, and Mrs. Monroe, I strongly recommend filing a protection order for both yourself and your daughter. My chest tightened. Yes, I will. He closed his notebook. We'll be in touch shortly. Mr. Thompson may be contacted for questioning today. Please let security know if he approaches the hospital again. I thanked him, though the words felt thin compared to everything unraveling around us. When I stepped back into the room, Emily's eyes were wide and scared. Mom, what did he say? I took a slow breath. The truth is coming out, sweetheart. All of it, and the law is involved now. She swallowed hard. So he's in trouble? Yes, I said softly. He is. Emily looked down at her hands. I feel like I should be relieved, but instead I'm scared. What if he tries something? I sat beside her, brushing hair from her forehead. He won't get near you. Security knows, the police know, and I'm here. Always. Her eyes glistened. I thought I was going to die, Mom. That night, when my chest hurt and I couldn't breathe and no one answered, I thought it was over. My breath caught. Oh, baby. Tears slid quietly down her cheeks, and the only thing I could think was, I want my mom. The words hit me like a direct blow to the heart. I leaned forward, gathering her carefully into my arms, mindful of the wires. I'm here, I whispered into her hair. I'm here now, and nothing will take you from me. She clung to me, shaking, but this time from the force of release, not pain. When she settled back against the pillows, the fear in her eyes had softened into exhaustion. Just then, Chloe entered with a cautious look. Linda, can I speak with you outside for a moment? My stomach tightened again. Of course. Outside the door, Chloe kept her voice low. Hospital security just received a notice from the sheriff's office. They attempted to contact Rick for questioning, and he's gone. I blinked. Gone? What does that mean? He didn't show up for work today. His phone is off. No one's seen him since he left the hospital yesterday. A cold sensation crept down my spine. Is he running? I asked. Chloe exhaled softly. We don't know, but they've marked him as a person of interest. If he returns here, security will intervene immediately. I pressed a hand to the wall to steady myself. The truth was clear. Men like Rick didn't run away unless they had something to hide. Something big. Something dangerous. Chloe placed a reassuring hand on my arm. We'll keep Emily safe. I nodded gratefully, but my heartbeat had begun pounding a relentless rhythm against my ribs. As I re-entered Emily's room, she looked up at me, reading my face instantly. What happened? Nothing you need to worry about right now, I said, forcing calm. You just focus on getting better. But inside, a storm was gathering. Because if Rick had disappeared, it meant the game had changed, and the next move might be his. For 2 days, the hospital lived in a quiet tension, everyone alert, everyone watchful. Officers checked in twice, security increased their rounds. Emily slowly grew stronger, her breathing steadier, her color warmer. Each improvement was a tiny miracle, but my heart could not fully rest. Not while Rick was out there, unpredictable and cornered. On the third morning, I was sitting beside Emily, reading aloud from a novel she loved when she was younger. She smiled faintly at certain lines, the kind that used to make her laugh as a teenager. For a moment, it felt almost normal. Then a firm knock interrupted us. A uniformed officer stepped in. Mrs. Monroe? Emily? My chest tightened. Yes? He removed his hat. I wanted to inform you both personally. Rick Thompson has been taken into custody. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. What? When? This morning, the officer said. He was found at a motel outside Jacksonville. He attempted to flee when deputies approached, but he was arrested without injury. My breath left me in a shaky exhale. Thank God, Emily's eyes filled with tears. Relief, disbelief, all fighting to surface. The officer continued. He will be charged with multiple counts of insurance fraud, forging medical documents, and obstruction. The district attorney is reviewing evidence for potential charges relating to intent to cause harm through financial exploitation. Emily's jaw trembled. Is he going to jail? Yes, the officer said gently. That is likely. I reached for her hand, squeezing it tight. It's over now. The officer nodded respectfully. We'll keep you updated. And Mrs. Monroe, your report made this possible. You protected your daughter. When he left, the room was silent except for the soft hum of machines. Emily looked down at her lap. Mom, I don't know how to feel. That's okay, I said softly. You don't have to choose just one feeling. She leaned back against her pillows, breathing slowly. I keep thinking, what if I hadn't made it? What if he had gotten what he wanted? I felt tears sting my eyes. But you did make it, and he didn't win. We're still here. She swallowed hard. I'm angry, Mom. I'm angry he used me like that. Angry he made me feel small every time I questioned him. Angry I almost died alone because of him. I brushed her hair gently. Anger is allowed. Healing needs truth, and truth is rarely gentle. She nodded, tears falling freely now. I held her while she cried, both of us trembling with the release of months, years of quiet suffering that had gone unnoticed. Later that afternoon, Chloe came in with a smile. Emily, your cardiologist says your improvement is exceptional. You may be moved out of ICU tomorrow. Emily's face lit up with disbelief. Really? Yes, Chloe said warmly. You're healing beautifully. Healing. The word felt like sunlight. For the first time, I saw color return to Emily's cheeks, not just from physical strength, but from freedom. She looked at me, voice trembling with newfound hope. Mom, when I get out of here, can we start over? Just the two of us? No secrets, no pressure, no pretending everything's fine when it isn't. My heart swelled. Sweetheart, I've been waiting for that for years. She smiled, a real smile this time, and rested her hand on mine. The next morning, while paperwork was being finalized for her transfer out of ICU, Emily slept peacefully, the steady rhythm of her heart monitor echoing like a promise. I stepped into the hallway for a moment, needing to breathe. Chloe found me there, leaning against the wall with tired but grateful eyes. You two have been through a storm, she said gently. Yes, I breathed, but it's finally passing. She nodded. And you pulled her through it. I shook my head. She fought so hard, I only helped her see she wasn't alone. Chloe smiled. Sometimes that's what saves people. I looked through the window at my daughter, the young woman who had almost lost her life, who had been manipulated, cornered, and silenced, but who was still here. Still choosing life, still choosing truth, still choosing healing. And I realized something. This wasn't just survival. It was a beginning. When Emily woke, I sat beside her and took her hand. Sweetheart, I said softly. When you're discharged, let's go somewhere quiet for a while. A small place by the coast, fresh air, peace, just us. Her eyes brightened. I'd love that. Then we'll do it, I said. A new chapter, one without fear. She nodded, tears of relief slipping down her cheeks. A new life. And as the machines hummed around us, holding her steady, I felt something in my chest shift, like the tightness that had gripped me for years finally loosened. We had made it out of the darkness. Together. And whatever waited ahead, we would face it. Not as victims, but as a mother and daughter who had survived something meant to break them, and chose, instead, to rebuild. When we finally left the hospital behind, the world felt strangely new. Quieter, softer, almost fragile in Emily's hands. We didn't go back to her apartment or to the house where memories of Rick still clung to the walls like dust. Instead, we found a tiny rental near a stretch of Florida marshland where the water stayed still, and the wind carried nothing but the rustle of reeds. Emily moved slowly at first, as if testing whether life would allow her to breathe without fear again. Each sunrise felt like a small victory. She began drinking tea on the porch, wrapping herself in my old knitted blanket, watching egrets lift off from the water with slow, deliberate grace. Some mornings, I'd wake to find her sitting by the window, her hand pressed lightly over her heart, not from pain this time, but from gratitude. I didn't think I'd ever feel safe again, she whispered once. But this feels like beginning. And it did. We cooked dinner together, bumping into each other in the narrow kitchen and laughing, real, tired, healing laughter. We walked the boardwalk at dusk, letting the sky paint us in soft orange and rose. At night, when the marsh hummed gently under the moon, Emily would rest her head on my shoulder the way she used to when she was small. No machines, no paperwork, no fear tightening her breath. One evening, as the last light faded, she slipped her hand into mine. Mom, she said, voice steady for the first time in a long while, I'm not the same person I was before all this, but maybe that isn't a bad thing. I squeezed her fingers. Surviving changes you, but it also frees you. She nodded, tears glimmering, not from pain but from release. I want to live gently now, she whispered, without looking over my shoulder. And I knew in that quiet moment by the marsh that this was our true ending. Not the hospital discharge, not Rick being taken away, but this slow, honest return to life. Two women, mother and daughter, learning how to breathe again. Choosing peace, choosing themselves, choosing a future built on light instead of shadows.